Thank you for joining us this evening for the June 1st, 2021 Monte Sereno City Council meeting. Before the meeting is called to order, I would like to point out a few house rules to assist council members, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Council members, your microphone is live, so please keep your microphones on mute until you wish to speak. For tonight's meeting, we are using Zoom to host the City Council regular meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues such as being unable to hear a council member speaking. Please use raise hand to be recognized by the mayor and enabled to speak to the council. To comment under oral communication or on any agenda item, you're allowed 3 minutes to speak per agenda item. Emails limited to 350 words can also be submitted to the city clerk and it will be read into the record. This word limit is set to adhere to the typical 3-minute time allowance. Only attendees using Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participants calling in from a telephone will only be able to listen and cannot provide feedback or public comment. Lastly, because we are all not in the same room, all votes at this meeting will be taken by roll call.
The Monte Sereno Council meeting for the 1st of June 2021 is called to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lawler.
Present.
Councilmember Mekachek.
Present.
Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elahi.
Present.
And Mayor Luthold.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And before we begin today, we have a few issues that we need to speak about. First of all, I would like to express our condolences on behalf of the City of Monte Sereno, council and staff, to Mr. Samaranos on the passing of his father. No words are ever adequate at this time to really express our feelings, but we'd like Mr. Samaranos to know that we appreciate him and we stand with him at this time. Also, on the VTA tragedy last week, it's obviously important that we say a few words, and Councilmember Mekachek has asked to speak on that issue. So I'd like to recognize him to say a few words at this time.
Thank you. I am Monte Sereno's representative on the Valley Transit Authority's Policy Advisory Committee. As well, Jessica Khan, our city engineer, is on the VTA's Technical Policy Advisory Committee. On behalf of the City of Monte Sereno, I'd like to offer and convey our sincere condolences to families, friends, and entire VTA community on the loss of 9 dedicated and hardworking VTA employees that were victims in the senseless gun violence at the VTA rail yards on Wednesday, May 26th. The people who work for the VTA are dedicated to serving the South Bay, and we are grateful for their service and resiliency in moving forward. As well, we are grateful to the officers that responded in minutes to the active shooter situation. We are thankful for their prompt action that prevented the loss of even more lives. Learning of this horrible and terrible tragedy in the South Bay strikes home the number of senseless shootings that are taking place across America. Although the City of Monte Sereno is very small, to the victim's family and friends and the VTA community, we want you to know that we share in the grief of your loss.
That's your microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Mekachek. And yes. All right, moving forward, Mr. Rudin, Mr. Leonardis, Ms. Radcliffe, any changes to the orders of the day?
No changes for me.
Okay.
None for me either. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Leonardis, did we get your audio up?
I believe so. Can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for your patience with that. So,
all right. No changes to the orders of the day?
No changes.
All right, thank you. No presentations today, so we will move now to oral communications. for oral communications. This is the time for members of the public to speak about matters which are not on the agenda. If we have any members of the public wishing to speak on anything not on the agenda tonight, please raise your hand in Zoom and we will recognize you. Seeing none, we will close oral communications and move to the section of written communications. I see that we have logged a Silicon Valley Clean Energy Financial Assistance notice under written communications. Ms. Radcliffe, are there any other written communications that we need to add to the record?
No, there are not.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving now to the consent calendar. On the consent calendar, are there any council members wishing to ask short questions of staff as we move forward, or wishing to pull an item? If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the consent calendar, please raise your hand to be recognized, and we'll get to that in a moment. First, staff members, anyone wishing to ask brief questions? All right, none, seeing none from council. We will officially open public comment. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on matters on the consent calendar, please raise your hand to be recognized. Seeing none, we will close the public comment and move now to the consent calendar. Do we have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember.
We lost Ms. Radcliffe. I assume that was a motion by Mr. Mekachek, a second by Ms. Turner.
Sorry about that. Yes, roll call vote. Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Councilmember Mekachek,
Yes. Oh,
Councilmember-
sorry.
Councilmember Turner,
Yes.
Councilmember Mekachek,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Elahi,
Aye.
and Mayor Luthold.
Yes.
That motion passes.
All right, thank you. We have under public hearings, we have no unfinished business. For new business tonight, it is the annual City Council goal setting for fiscal year 21-22. And so let's go ahead and jump in. Mr. Leonardis, do you have a staff report on this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a brief introduction before we get into the meeting this evening. I wanted to mention that Mr. Sean Spano is with us again this evening. I believe this is the 5th year in a row. Mr. Spano has been a facilitator for this annual goal setting session on behalf of the city of Monte Sereno. So we're glad to have him back, as well as Melinda Walker, who will be taking the minutes as she did last year and drawing an artistic impression of tonight's discussion in those meeting minutes. So both of them are with us this evening. We're glad to have both of them back. And we have our meeting agenda. Without further ado, I will turn it over to Mr. Spano, and he will begin the session.
Actually, before we jump in, let's officially, at the top end of this, open public comment. And are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this matter at this time? If so, please raise your hand. If there are members of the public who wish to speak later, we may be able to recognize you, but assume this is your one opportunity to raise your hand and be recognized. Seeing none, we will close public comment now and pass the staff to Mr. Sean Spanos.
Well, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. So we're going to move forward on our goal setting session. And as City Manager Leonardo said, this is, I believe, the 5th year that I've been involved in your goal setting, and it's a pleasure to be back with you all. So we'll have Michelle be advancing the slides here, and the next slide up is our agenda for this evening. If you could move forward, thank you. We have our call to order, opening comments, and here I am previewing the agenda and the format. So if we go to the next slide, please, Michelle. So we have a couple different purposes this evening. We're going to get started here with just a quick little warm-up activity and ask each of the council members to identify 1 or 2 key accomplishments from the past year. And then we will touch base with the city council role, mission, vision, and values. And so as part of goal setting, what is the larger framework before we start moving into the strategic goals? And that's where those items come up. And you have all that information, of course, in your packet. You have a document that lays out in one single document the city council role, mission, vision, and values. And we'll do a quick check-in on those. And I believe there are some additions, some suggestions and additions, and we'll open that up for conversation when we come to that point in the agenda. And then we'll move into the heart of the meeting this evening, being the goal setting session. We'll review the 2021 strategic goals and objectives. And we'll just put up the slide. What were those strategic goals and what are those objectives? You have 5 strategic goals and there's a number of objectives underneath. And then we'll turn it over to the city manager, who will walk through the work that was accomplished last year and which one of those objectives, which of the objectives were accomplished and which are ongoing and still active. And so that'll be a review of 2020-21, and then we will move over to consider new objectives for 2022. And we'll set this up when we come to this point in the agenda. But as the staff report indicates, we'll still work within the 5 strategic goals which come out of the general plan. So the objectives, the sub-goals, the tasks underneath those strategic goals is where our focus will be. And that will include the review of the objectives as well as considering new objectives. So if that works for the council, we are ready to move forward and do our warm-up activity, which is a warm-up activity, but a warm-up activity with substance, because it does highlight the challenging, difficult year all city governments have, including Monte Sereno. But it's also important, I think, within the context of that challenging year, what were the accomplishments? So if we could move to the next slide, please, Michelle. So we'll just go around and hear from each of you and also the city manager as well. What would be your top 1 or 2 accomplishments from the past year? Mr. Mayor, do you want to get us started?
Well, actually, you know, the mayor usually gets to go last on these things and listen to everybody else first. But since you put me on the spot, actually, I wanted to highlight some of the simple things. And that is generally having gotten through this tough year quite successfully as a city. And I think just getting through the year, all of the things that our prior mayor, Ms. Lawler, took care of for us, and the city manager transitioning to work from home, but then keeping things going. And one particular thing that I wanted to note is just the small improvements that city manager Leonardis managed to implement while everything was locked down, getting curbs painted, getting bushes trimmed, making good use of his time when he was really sidelined in terms of running the city at its usual rate, but also keeping everything afloat in the city's business at the same time. So those were some of the notes I wanted to put out there.
Excellent, very good, thank you. We can go to Mayor Pro Tem next.
I guess we start with the mayor, so that I guess in a way it helps to go first. That way somebody doesn't cover what you were going to cover, I suppose. Thank you for doing this again. I thought one accomplishment we had last year had to do with the reach codes, where we were emphasizing trying to eliminate greenhouse gases to the extent we possibly could. And the Monte Sereno was one of the first ones to adopt reach codes, which allow for electrical rather than and replacing gas. So we haven't quite gotten there yet. I think in the future, the state of California requires that everything pretty much go electric, and I think we'll end up there, but it was a good first step. The other thing that I'm proud of is that the city of Monte Sereno really shows concern for those in need. I mean, we have a budget which provides, some support for different communities and organizations, and we give donor support. I think that we need to keep that going. I also like the fact that we were more concerned about equality and against discrimination and adopted resolutions. For example, the anti-hate against Asian resolution that was adopted. I think that was a good step for a city like us to take it into account. It was a difficult year, and I think last year Mayor Laura did an excellent job with all the staff changes that have gone by, and we're stepping into it. And hopefully we can, and this year will go smoother. I think our city council is working better together, and we are coordinating and working and trying to be on the same page as much as we can as politicians, I suppose. And I guess the challenge obviously is going to be the housing regulations, the ABAG rules, and how we are going to come through that. That's going to be our real challenge, to see how we do it. And it's always been a challenge for cities like ours. So I guess that gives you something to work with, Sean.
Yes, very good. Thank you very much. Who would like to go next? Councilmember, go ahead, Councilmember Turner.
Yes, I think one of our key accomplishments is really analyzing our OPEB and PERS costs. And we paid off our unfunded pension liability last year, and that was good. I think going forward, we need to develop a good savings plan for the maintenance of City Hall, which we are doing hopefully in the coming year, and any of our future facilities. We also updated some parts of our general plan, so I think that's good. And we've also continued our pavement project. So those are the three things that I think we should highlight. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent, very good. And it's okay if you don't have to have a totally original list here, because we've already heard several, and if those are on your top accomplishments, let's identify those as well. Councilmember Lawler, Councilmember Mekachuk, who would like to go?
I'll go ahead. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words, Mayor Lithold and Mayor Pro Tem Malahi. Last year definitely was an interesting year, and staff really did a great job in showing how flexible the city is in adapting to the situation. And I agree that the time was well used by our city manager to upgrade City Hall, make it ADA compliant, and do all of these other housekeeping and house improvement things that the City Hall desperately needed. I also think that we did a very good job of resolving our land use issues. We had some very difficult cases, and we managed, with the help of our attorney and working together, to get through those, as well as the intense labor negotiations that wound up being a really great situation for us overall. And finally, I thought our SNA joint session was great, working well with another commission for the betterment of the city. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that. And so we go to Councilmember Mekachuk.
Big thing. Since I've recently joined City Council, being in January, my time is very limited in the past year. So I would echo and underscore the comments that the Mayor Pro Tem and the other two council members highlighted. I think that we're doing extremely well as an organization now, and I believe that City Manager Leonardis is doing a good job putting together a team and now building that team. So I think that's a significant accomplishment, because the staff are the ones that make things happen. So I can only think that this next year, it's going to be difficult to exceed what was done last year. But I look forward to doing my best to help with the city board.
Very good. Thank you for that. And we have not met, so it's a pleasure meeting you, council member. Okay, thank you. City Manager, what would you identify as the one or two top accomplishments?
Thank you, Mr. Spanos. So first of all, I would like to thank the council and our staff for working so hard since our last year's strategic goals. We did accomplish very much in a year that was very challenging, and it's the efforts of teamwork and I just remember so many meetings beginning in last May when we did the strategic goals in June and maybe special meeting in July, where we came up with the new budget format. We adopted the labor agreement. We had the employee handbook. We had the financial policies. It was a year of giving, the council, and a year of receiving grants. We received several big grants, as well as we gave grants to our community-based organizations, DART and West Valley Community Services. Very proud of the Youth Commission, their Social Justice Award, our ability to communicate, our enhanced communications on our website, our implementation of iCompass and the online building permitting software, which is well underway, and hiring of key personnel, Mr. Samaranos, Ms. Radcliffe, who helped with much of the success we've had, in addition to the other things which were mentioned by everybody previously. So thank you, and we're looking forward to a great 21-22.
Something in the mic over there and see.
Very good. Thank you. Good. So we have a little bit of background noise there. Very good. Excellent. Okay, we'll move forward here and do a check-in. So as I mentioned, starting at a high level before we get into the strategic goals and the objectives, look at council role, review council role. You also have a brand new mission statement, 1 year old. You have a vision statement that's a few years old and a set of values that are also a few years old that have been updated. So there is a document in your packet, City Council Role, Mission, Vision, and Values, June 2021. And so as we set that up, I'll just a little bit of background on that. Back in 2017, and Councilmember Turner will remember that, there was she was on the Council Ad Hoc Committee on Governance, and they developed the role, vision, and value statements. Each year at the council goal setting session, there's a check-in on these, and changes, additions, tweaks are made. And so in March of 2019, there were updated items. In May of 2020, as the city manager mentioned, the last goal setting session, there were also updates that were made, including last year. There was the development of a mission statement because the city at that time did not have a mission statement. So that sets the context, and I know there's some additions and some suggestions here going forward, and we'll open the floor for that in just a minute. We can start there with the city council role, but let me just go ahead and read your city council role here, and then we'll open it up for comments and questions and suggestions to make changes. So it reads this way: the city council is the governing body of the city, vested with policy, fiduciary, legislative, and quasi-judicial authority. The council serves all of Monte Sereno, establishing policy and making decisions that are designed to benefit the community as a whole. Council members adhere to and model the council values. Next slide, please, Michelle. As part of its leadership role, council advocates, regulates, forms partnerships, and provides directions and monitors achievement. And we have one more slide on the council role. Members of the council fulfill their roles and responsibilities through the relationships they have with each other, the public, and city staff, and by following all applicable regulations, ordinances, and laws. Council members adhere to and model the council values. So let me pause there with that as a description of the council role and open it up for comments, questions, and suggestions. And if you want to just go ahead and use the raise hand function, or just unmute yourself or physically raise your hand, we'll get this started. And Councilmember Turner, yes, go ahead and get us started, please.
Yes, I wanted to put some context into this. You started it, Mr. Spano. In 2017, Mayor Ann Standing and I put together an ad hoc committee. We came up with the values, the mission statement, everything that you see here. And over the years, we have actually added to it. Now, what I've noticed this past year is many of the citizens would send me emails, would call me asking me, tell me again, what are the roles of the council? What are their responsibilities? And I would actually send them to the website, and it would be a back and forth because it wasn't easy to find the documents that they were looking for. So one of the things that that Mayor Leuthold and I decided to do this weekend was to create a set of responsibilities that go along with the council role that I distributed before this meeting. And we have to apologize for not giving you more time, but it took all the weekend to be able to do that. So what I'd like to do is to give it back to you, Mr. Spano, and see if we can actually flush it out, because it hasn't gone through our city attorney, and we haven't heard from the rest of the council as to what they really want to do. So I want this to be a collaborative approach to how we're going to go implement this. It would be nice to have it on the website, and for each responsibility, they should be able to do a click here and look for it in an instant. So that's the objective here. Anything to add, Mayor Leuthold?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Turner. And actually, I want to point out Ms. Turner did the vast majority of the work on this. This is really something she's been working on since 2017. And so she brought this to me to take a look at because she's passionate about getting this right. And it really is the heart of a lot of what goes into this meeting. So she's proposed updating the city council mission, and we should take a look at what she's written versus what was there before, and either go with one or the other or see about combining them. And then this idea of expanding city council roles so that it really can point the citizens to what the city council does and what it doesn't do, I think will be helpful. So I think these are good improvements, and look forward to having input. I know it is short notice for everybody, but we can make it a long night.
Should we call up that document?
I think so, unless everybody has extra screens available. It's probably best if you're able to call up the document. It was attached, I believe, to the agenda. So Ms. Radcliffe or someone running Herd on us should be able to pop it open pretty easily.
Can you tell me what document was it? Is it the goals and objectives?
It was the council roles. Let me see if I can see the agenda, which you've coded it as. That's the city council roles and responsibilities. It's the May 30th, 2021 final. I believe that's the add-on document.
Give me one moment. I will get that up.
While Ms. Radcliffe is getting that up, may I say something?
Oh, yes, please do.
Thank you. I'm not, while I like the document that was put in place right now, I think that it would be really good for us to have a dedicated session to this. To receive it this afternoon is just without a red line version. There's a number of issues that I think that are raised in this. I think it'd be great to have a separate meeting on this, but I would prefer not to use our time this evening going through wordsmithing this, because I think significant wordsmithing needs to be done. And it's not, if it's been in work for some time, to receive it this afternoon, just, you know, I prefer to dedicate some time to it.
I think that's an excellent point. And so what I'll suggest that we do here is if Council Member Turner or Mayor Leuthold want to inform your colleagues, and we'll just scan through the document, what are the changes? What was some thinking behind that, so they have a context to look at the document on their own to decipher that. And we'll just take a couple minutes and do that. And then as we move forward later on and add new objectives, that might be the objective to form, and I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth or suggest anything here, but it might be that you form a subcommittee that would then be responsible for going through the document and putting that into a framework for review, and perhaps at a study session or a council meeting, as Councilmember Mekachuk is suggesting, that you would look at that in more detail. Does that work for the council? Just to get a context, just a high level context of what we're looking at here, and then we ask if council wants to pursue this at another time when there's more opportunity and more time to really look at it and give you all an opportunity to read through it, make edits, suggestions, and come up with questions.
That sounds good. Ms. Turner, do you want to maybe walk through the document is on the screen now, and Ms. Radcliffe, I guess, can scroll it for you. Do you want to walk through your thinking about what you're looking at here?
Yes. Yes, I can do that. Okay, so for the city council mission, one of the things that many of the citizens and the residents have asked me is, what is the mission statement for the council? Why are you there? When I send you a letter, and do I expect a response from you, the council, or should I be expecting a response from the city manager, or should I be expecting a response from staff? So if we were to actually say, what is our mission? That we represent the voice of the community and that we represent the residents of Monte Sereno. The mission of the council is to provide policy direction. We guide the operation of the city, and we don't necessarily do the operation of the city. That belongs to the city manager. We have to do it in a manner that is efficient, that is transparent, and fiscally responsible. And we said there are certain things that are important to the city, like setting the annual budget. That is something that we do with the provision and the direction to the city manager. And that was one of the questions that they asked is, do we have a budget to change PG&E, or do we have a budget to add some sidewalks? Okay. The council is also responsible to do this in a manner that preserves the unique residential character of the city. And as you know, you have seen many of the residents becoming very emotional when they talk about Hacienda Inn. So one of the things that we need to say is, yes, we want to preserve the unique character of the city. We will protect its natural resources, as well as the environment, the health and safety and welfare of the residents. So that's what went into the first mission statement. The second one, what I did here is I combined the current role and I added the activities and the duties of the council. So the council is the financial authority for the city. It reviews the budget recommendation from the financial officer and the city manager, and then we approve the budget. The council approves the budget, takes public comments, which we do, and we adopt the budget for the fiscal year. Throughout the year, we monitor the budget, and that's what we asked Mr. Samaranos at the last meeting to inform us when we're over budget. But we have to stay within the constraints of state law and regulations to be able to have the authority to levy taxes, sell bonds, assess fees, and other changes. And we have the authority also to approve major contracts for the city. So one of the things that they asked is, what is the responsibility for each council member? Okay. Do you all have to act in as a 5-0 vote? And so The response here is each council member has a responsibility to understand community issues and to assist the community in understanding those issues. The council has the responsibility to make all the decisions in public and to be transparent in all city deliberations where feasible and practical. Finally, they have a responsibility to make decisions in the best interest of the city, which may not necessarily be what is popular at the moment. Any questions? Or should I just move on? What do you want me to do, Mr. Mayor Luthold?
I'm going to suggest, Councilmember Turner, that you just move forward because you just want to give your colleagues a sense of what they're looking at here. And then
Okay,
there'll be a time for follow-up at another session or with the subcommittee.
okay. And so the second one is also our leadership role. The council has the responsibility to provide a vision, which is what we do every year. We set our goals, we advocate, we regulate, and we form partnerships. We form partnerships with the fire department, the police department, and we set the direction for the community and the organization. The council has the responsibility to make appointments to the boards, commissions, and advisory committees. Now, what are the duties of the council? The council has a duty to participate in work sessions, bi-weekly meetings throughout the year, as well as budget meetings, special closed sessions, and the annual goal-setting workshop. The council members have a duty to be ethical. The council is the employer authority for the city manager. The council will hire the city manager, set his or her compensation, approve salary increases, and conduct performance evaluations. Now, last year we set the process for the performance evaluation with an ad hoc committee. The city manager is the only city employee that works entirely for the city council directly. The city clerk reports to the council in their role as city clerk. However, in many of their administrative duties, they report through the city manager. The city attorney reports directly to the council. Lastly, the city council maintains authority over the financial officer of the city through its control of finances through the line of reporting, which is also through the city manager. The city manager refrains from interference with administrative service, except for the purpose of inquiry. The council must deal with the administration of city services through the city manager. And the third one says, the council approves all ordinances, policies, and procedures for the city. The proposed ordinance, policy, or procedure is reviewed at a public meeting to encourage public involvement, especially in the development of new ordinances. Now, I must say that in the past years, we've always had the public involved, and seeing that we have COVID, it's difficult to do that at this time. So they're not particularly involved. And I don't know if we should actually be doing that. Perhaps we should. Council members adhere to and model the council values. And that is from years past. The council is the final land use authority for decisions at the city level. They convene as a quasi-judicial body to hear certain land use issues, such as zone changes and appeals of decisions made by site and architecture. Now, I incorporated the major things we do. There are a lot more things that we obviously do, like we go to events. We represent the city at events that I didn't include here. And I didn't make any changes to the city council values.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. So there's a lot to digest there. And again, that's something that you all can do offline. And when we come to the goals and objectives, my sense is that will be one of the objectives that will be put on the table. And as we move forward here, The city council mission, this is the, as I mentioned earlier, this mission statement is 1 year old. It was proposed last May and then adopted by the council. So I'll just read this, and then you just heard Council Member Turner also develop the mission statement. So I'm going to suggest that part of that other meeting where you look more specifically in detail at the council role, perhaps with a subcommittee, that part of that effort also will involve marrying this mission statement to the mission statement that you just heard Council Member Turner read. So the current mission statement, again, 1 year old, the mission of the city of Monte Sereno is to provide high quality services to residents in an efficient, transparent, and fiscally responsible manner that preserves and enhances the unique residential character of Monte Sereno, protect natural resources, and minimizes resident impacts to the environment, and protects and enhances the health, safety, mobility, and welfare of residents. And as I was just glancing without a lot of opportunity to look at it in detail, there's a lot of overlap with the mission statement that we just heard from Council Member Turner. So it might be an easy process to marry those two. Council Member Lawler.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Spano. I think what could make it simpler is that on our website, the council mission is actually called the city mission. And I'm thinking that perhaps we can have a city mission and a council mission. So the city mission, which is mentioned on the website, is a more general mission, whereas the council mission is much more detailed and specific. So I'm thinking we could keep both.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent. Thoughts about that? Have two mission statements.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in on that. I think I see what Ms. Turner is trying to accomplish here, which I really think is important. When I see a mission statement, even I think the existing one is pretty well crafted, and yet it's just kind of marketing noise to me. Maybe it's because I come from a marketing background way back when, but it's just what you expect to see there, and it means nothing at all. Whereas I think what Ms. Turner is really trying to do is solve the problem, which is to explain what it is that the city of Monte Sereno is up to, and also to educate the residents right from the beginning when they come onto the website, looking at what's going on, practically telling them, and what she's doing without saying these words is talking about what the city manager form of government, as opposed to the strong mayor form of government, is. Because that's what people don't understand, is do they call the mayor to get an answer to their problem, or do they call the city manager? Most people think they call the mayor, and that's not what we do here. So I think Ms. Turner's approach is to really tell the citizens that Monte Sereno is unique in several ways. Yes, it's unique in its environment and character and what we're trying to preserve, but also it's unique in how you get your problem solved, because it's a city manager form of government. And here's what council does and doesn't do. I think I really like the transition she does. And so again, I mean, we can talk about the city's marketing mission on the one hand, but I really think jumping right in and telling people what they need to know is the important thing.
Good, excellent. Very good. Other thoughts around the mission statement? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think it's a good effort by Councilmember Turner and the Mayor Sean. But we do need to kind of dig through those, and be good to see if you could mark up the original one with the insertions on the new one. That may be helpful. But there are a few things that I can pick up that may need just a little tweaking. So it's a good idea to consider both of them and have a full discussion on it. And as Councilmember Turner suggested, this is going to be a collaborative effort. So the more input we can get from all the council members on this would be very helpful to get a good, solid mission and value statement out there. So it's an excellent start, but we do need to digest it all.
Very good. Any other comments around council role or city council mission / city mission?
And I'll just, there was mention of city attorney review for this, and I'm happy to work with either the ad hoc committee or whoever else the council decides to charge with bringing this back to council for the subsequent agenda item.
Very good. Thank you for that.
And let me, oh, sorry.
Yes, please go ahead.
And let me say this, the reason, I went into a lot of detail on the mission statement is when a citizen sends in a letter to us, the question they always call me back on is, well, who's supposed to respond to this? And it really depends on the letter. And if they knew what the duties of council are, and what the duties of city manager are, then they can actually say, okay, in this situation, this is who I will approach. And I think that was the main concern here is as the citizens get more involved with us, because now they know how to get online. In the past, they wouldn't get online. They're able to see for themselves how to work with city government.
Very good. Excellent. And that affirms and reinforces what the mayor just said, that it serves an education function around what the council manager form of government is.
Exactly.
And I think we all know that is not intuitively obvious to most community members, what the council manager form of government is. And so that's what I'm hearing that mission statement proposing to do. Go ahead, Councilmember Mekachuk.
So I would, and maybe I'm kind of leaping ahead, but in the later on under quality public service and community engagement, item C, maybe drilling down and fleshing the draft document out would be an item that we could put under community engagement.
Excellent. Good. So that jump starts us and gives us a place to start when we come to that portion of the agenda. Excellent. Very good. If there's no other comments on this, and we will return to it in just a bit, we can move forward and take a look at the vision statement, please, Michelle. So the vision statement has been adopted since 2017. The City Council will continue to strengthen the community and promote a sense of unity. Together, the council strives to maintain the unique character and beauty of the city. And the mission statement, of course, describes what the city or what the council is about, their sort of reason for existence. And the vision is very present oriented, and the vision is the future oriented, will continue to strengthen, strives to maintain the unique character and beauty of the city. Any thoughts, reactions to the vision statement? Go ahead, Councilmember Mekachuk.
It's not, well, I think the vision should also be to show some leadership here in the Silicon Valley. And, you know, it's kind of going beyond the city. I think when people think of the city of Monte Sereno, they should have very positive thoughts. They should say, gee, the city of Monte Sereno, that would be a great place to live because it's safe, it's sustainable, etc. The things that are upstairs in our vision or in our mission. So I think that it would be nice to have something on leadership in our region.
Okay, good. Regional leadership.
And that also goes to what many residents have said in their correspondence and in their testimony in public hearings to basically their property values. And you know, how can City Council make the city of Monte Sereno a more desirable place to live. If it's more desirable, then it's going to have more value.
Good.
I think that's really important.
Good. Excellent. Okay, any thoughts? And obviously we're taking notes and capturing this for the next iteration, if there is a subcommittee that forms. Any other thoughts, reactions to the vision? Regional leadership with the focus on ensuring that the vision statement captures Monte Sereno as a desirable place to live. Let's move forward into the values. So you have 6 values, and there's just the names of the values, and then I'll go ahead and read off the descriptions. There's a sentence description or a couple sentence description of each one. So under integrity and professionalism, the City Council shall work together to serve the community by respecting and trusting each other. We honor our word and keep our commitments. We seek to earn the public's trust and confidence. We accept responsibility and take ownership for our actions. For transparency and openness, we listen to all ideas and viewpoints. We establish clear direction, priorities, and clearly communicate intentions and expectations. Performance accountability. We act in the best interests of the city. We set measurable performance goals which support the priorities of the city and our individual work groups. Effective and efficient services. We deliver effective and efficient services both internally and through partnerships with other agencies to maximize city resources. We strive to set a standard for excellence. Fiscal responsibility. We conduct short and long-range strategic budgeting and financial planning to maximize service delivery and to build the economic stability of the city. We practice sound fiscal management to protect our financial resources. And the last one, quality of life for all residents. We are committed to continually enhancing the quality of life. We safeguard the value of economic vitality of our community. And just included last year was this last sentence. We promote inclusiveness and non-discrimination. Thoughts around the values, and I did notice that Councilmember Turner, working with Mayor Leuthold, did not make any changes in their document to the values. Any thoughts, reactions, comments to your values? It's a great set of values. I will say that.
I think it sounds like a great place to live and a good organization to be a part of.
Agreed. Yes, Councilmember Mekachuk.
Transparency is an interesting word that has different meanings to different people. But I think here where it says transparency and openness, we listen to all ideas and viewpoints. We establish clear direction, priorities, and clearly communicate intentions and expectations. I think from a city council value, our decision-making process should be transparent. And what that means, transparency in that context means that decisions are made in city council and that decisions aren't made outside of council. And when we make a decision, we make that decision and listen to our constituents. And I think that's very important to describing the transparency. So maybe we need transparency in decision making. You can do some wordsmithing.
That's good. Thoughts about that as I'm reading that? Yes, and so adding in the decision-making piece. And as I was hearing that, something along the lines of the decision-making process is transparent, where council is making decisions in public meetings and done so in a way that is open and available for others to participate in or to critique or just to know about and have information about how the decision-making was actually enacted. So a suggestion to add that in. So we'll go ahead and capture that. So as we move forward, that takes care of council roles, mission, vision, and values. And so there's several suggestions here. And what it sounds like in terms of moving forward is a other process. And what I would suggest, based on the recommendations that we're hearing here, is to not just look at those expanding the council role and then marrying up the vision or create a mission or creating two missions, but also taking a look at the council values with that suggestion of the decision-making process and transparency and openness, and something along the vision, adding in the vision around leadership, regional leadership. Okay, it looks like you are well on your way, and I think it's always healthy to not sit on your mission, vision, values, and just let them sort of collect dust and become old and calcified. It's so important to refresh them, and to you have new council members, and to add that voice into that, and it's an ongoing living document, which I'm hearing is exactly what's going to happen here. So with that said, then, and again, we've captured these points in the notes, we can move forward now into the setting the stage for the strategic planning piece around the goals and objectives. And so there's a couple slides here that are really setting, as I mentioned, setting the stage. And so this iceberg model of city work is relatively well known, and it's one way of thinking about the work that council does and the work that staff does, another way of really thinking about a council manager form of government. So you have think of an iceberg, and you have the water line there. What is above the iceberg, and really where the focus is for all your goal setting session, is above the water line. These are goals, objectives, priorities that capture city council's visions, what city council considers to be important for the upcoming year. And so this becomes a council priority. It's above and beyond what is below the water line, which is the routine work of the city, the everyday work that happens. And it's not an exact formula, but the formula that's typically used is 20% of staff's time, 20% of the organization is devoted to the vision for the city's future, the strategic goals, the strategic priorities and objectives, whereas 80% is the routine, and not, and when I say routine, important, absolutely important, but it's the day-to-day work that doesn't get a lot of attention. It is the working with residents to on plans for a remodel of a home. It is about responding to a constituent's request about a public safety issue. It is about working with your pavement index, for example. So the governing body, council, usually does not need to make decisions about these routine city services and activities, except as part of approving the annual budget. In fact, it's the city manager's job to make sure that staff is performing and delivering the day-to-day services to the community. So again, we don't need to be below the water line. Where we want to be is above the water line, because that is the high-level strategic goals and priorities. So that's a sort of a background document here. We can move on to the next slide, which lays out what are the pieces, the elements of strategic planning. So we just took a look at mission, vision, and values. And I think it's actually quite wise of Monte Sereno to also include in that council role. Again, as we mentioned earlier, it's not always obvious what the role of council is and what the role of staff is. So that's one part of a strategic planning element. And of course, you have your strategic goals above the water line, strategic objectives above the water line. And then you also have key performance indicators. So as you start developing your goals and objectives, you start, falls to the city manager, what are those performance indicators and how do those get translated in the staff's work plans? So as you set you council set the strategic goals for the city, then it's the city manager's job to take those goals, to turn them into staff work plans to make sure that they're accomplished. And obviously you move from broad to specific, everything from very broad mission, vision, and values to very specific staff work plans. Who is going to do what with what resources? What's the timeline? So we are focused this evening on mission, vision, values, plus council role and strategic goals and strategic objectives, with giving staff and giving the city manager enough direction so that he knows what those key performance indicators and staff work plans will look like. And then the next slide after that lays out the process. So, and you determine what your position is as a city. Where do you get that information? What is your position? How do you determine that? Council and staff expertise and insights, community input, the general plan, budget reports, all laying out what your current position is. From there, you develop your strategy, mission, vision, values, goals, and objectives. You build the plan, compile information together. There's where the staff work plans start coming into play. And then we know that conducting the strategic priority session at this point in time is done specifically to align to the budget process. Since you're developing your strategic goals, those need to be resourced and so aligned to the budget process. And then you drive performance. And that again falls to the city manager as you move from the left to the right, implementing the plan, monitoring progress, adapting as needed, and updating as needed. And that specifically around work plans. The updating as needed, adapting, that's why you check in every year. Are these still the right objectives? Do we need to add new objectives? Do we need a new vision? Do we need more detail on council roles? So those are high level slides designed to set the stage for what we're going to engage in now, which is a review of your current strategic goals and objectives. So if we could go to the next slide, Michelle, please. Oh, yes, questions. Yes, go ahead. Councilmember Mekachuk.
Could you go back one slide, please? Under drive performance, as Councilmember Turner pointed out in her document, the city council basically only has the city manager reporting to them. And then also, Councilmember Turner mentioned several meetings ago that we should use some type of management by objectives. And I'm wondering if a bullet point under drive performance would be to update the city manager evaluation or annual performance plan, or maybe the city manager creates his or her plan for the upcoming year that's based on this process, so it really drives it into implementation, and also the budget follows along. And maybe I'm saying stuff that is just a given. I'm not.
Yeah, that's good. And so this is actually a slide that and I'm not going to take full credit for it. I pulled from lots of different sources, but it's a slide that I've put together as well as the previous slide. The iceberg model is well known, and I take no credit for that. So I'm happy to make that change, council member, to this slide. And I think it is a great way for council to ensure that performance is meeting expectations, is through the city manager, and as you're saying, specifically through the city manager's performance evaluation gives you an opportunity to evaluate what happened the year before, and then to hear the plan for the upcoming year in terms of performance. So it's a great suggestion, and I've made my note here to add that to the slide. It'll improve that slide. Let's move forward onto the goals and objectives. So in your packet, you have a document which lays out all 5 of your goals, and then also includes this slide is just brief, that also includes the objectives underneath those slides. So I'm going to suggest, Michelle, that we just pull that up real quickly, and we're going to scan through it very quickly, because the slide after that, that will be much more useful for us is the strike through slide. So what you have, again, coming out of your packet, you have strategic goal number 1, quality public services. And that strategic goal has 3 sub-goals underneath that: fiscal prudence, governance, operations, and community engagement. And so underneath that are your objectives, the very specific tasks that fall underneath that. Then you have community character and a strategic goal, and think of A, B, C, D, E as your objectives underneath community character. Again, specific tasks. And let me also just reiterate here, these strategic goals come out of your general plan. They don't change easily and they don't change often. What does change are the objectives underneath, because those are constantly being worked on by staff, and if all goes well, they're being accomplished and checked off the list. And we're here tonight to review that as well as add new items on. The third strategic goal is enhanced mobility. You've got a number of strategic objectives underneath that. And then number 5 is community safety. Again, a series of current objectives underneath that. And again, those objectives were identified and adopted last year, and that is what staff has been working on. And then the last one is environmental sustainability, with 4 objectives underneath that. So I'm going to turn it over to the city manager here to just walk you through a review of your current goals and objectives, which is your strike through document. And you have that document in your packet. Same exact items that we just reviewed, but what is included here in this document is what was accomplished over the last year.
So thank you, everybody. This is Steve Leonardis again. Looking at what we have accomplished since our last meeting of this type in 2020, it's quite significant, as we discussed earlier this evening. So what I did was I prepared the same document with the items that are no longer, well, the work continues, but they're no longer, they've basically been achieved. So as you can see, item number 3 under fiscal prudence, user and regulatory fees, city resource versus recovery methodology, that one is a carryover that did not get achieved in the last 12 months. When we scroll down a little bit on our screen, we go to operational excellence plan. This one could use more work and or guidance. When we scroll down, we have under community engagement annual city survey and resident service feedback and implementation. That one was not completed. Scroll down. Looks like we took care of things pretty well in community character. Enhanced mobility, there was a request last year for internet capacity improved. We made no progress in that category. Scroll down. Let's see, climate change resolution. That one is still in the works as well. So if we can go to the next slide. So what I did was I took the ones that I just mentioned and carried them over. You can see under fiscal prudence, user and regulatory fees, city resource versus recovery methodology is carried over. And then item 2 in this category was mentioned by Council Member Mekchek earlier in the year as something that would be something that we would like to pursue during the session this year. So I put that in that category because it fits under fiscal prudence. And then number 3, I left blank because that's for a future idea, which will be covered by council this evening. We go down to item B. You can see the operational excellence plan carried over. City's record management program, update retention policy, create records destruction policy. This was put forth by the new city clerk, Michelle Radcliffe, as something that we need to do to improve our operations for this coming fiscal year. Going down to community engagement, some carryovers, Citizen of the Year Award Program, annual city survey, resident feedback. I just touched lightly on Citizen of the Year. Because of the pandemic, we kind of put that one aside. However, we did come up with alternatives such as the Monte Sereno Living History Project. So we did have a different form of engagement. Also, the Youth Commission employed the Social Justice Award. So this one kind of got set aside. It can still be pursued if council wishes to pursue it. We also put in our newsletter, Outstanding Residents. So we try to engage a little bit of that, but it was one of those things that because of the pandemic, we weren't going to be able to bring anybody into our chambers and honor them and give them an award and give them a handshake and all those kind of things. Annual city survey and resident service feedback and implementation. Again, that was carried over. Online resident issue tracking and corrective action process. We are signing an agreement with C-Click Fix to take care of that one. So that is ongoing. And the Veterans Memorial is ongoing. And I included some documents in the packet that I'll cover here in a moment about that. Moving on to community character, general plan, housing element, objective standards updates. Those are all being worked on as we speak. And we will be engaging in having some community meetings very soon coming up. Community arts project program. This is something staff had thought about in reference to the Billy Jones Railroad wall on Winchester, which is kind of leaning a little bit. It's got a plaque on it. Thought that would be a great opportunity for a community arts project. Resident from our community, former Mayor Burton Craig, put forth the idea in your packet about the birdhouses, which are being done up in Lafayette. So I hope you all got a chance to look at that. But I think as a strategic goal for council in the coming year, if you wanted to have ongoing community arts in our city, that would be a wonderful way to engage the public. So that was something we put forth tonight as a proposal. Internet capacity improved. I know in various locations in the city, this is being worked on, but it's kind of being handled by a private agency, Comcast, working with PG&E, et cetera, et cetera. Not sure if this is something that the city wishes to try to get involved with, but nevertheless, it's carried over on the list. So we can strike it out if council decides with their discussion to strike it out or continue its pursuit in some fashion. Highway 9 sidewalk gap project. This is an item which has been on the radar of the city for a long time. It's possible that we may finally get federal funding to go after this of about $510,000. We'll have to do a matching grant, but this is potentially within reach, and there it is, as well as the Xena La Ricanata pavement project, which will be a very large street project, large for the size of our city, of about $2 million. And engineer Jessica Kahn is on the line this evening to discuss that in greater detail should need be. Community safety, private safety, increased police patrol and or flock cameras. So this was brought forth by a member of the community, Kathy Smith, earlier in the year about having a private patrol and then having a private patrol paid for on the street, which was Greenwood. Then there was the idea brought forth, well, if you're going to spend $200,000 a year on private patrol, why not fund another police officer for Monte Sereno? And then there was, I went to the police chief and I talked to the police chief about probably the best way to approach the public safety and have great efficiency is to have something called flock cameras, which the department is considering. Nevertheless, I put it on there for community safety because again, it was an idea brought forth in the year since our last strategic goals. So I thought it was a good idea for discussion this evening. Moving into environmental sustainability, climate change resolution. We did have an ad hoc committee meeting last fall with Councilmember Lawler and Mayor Luthold. And I believe that this is a great idea still. It may come forth with language in our general plan when we revise our general plan. But I say it's an idea that has great merit and should stay on the list if council also agrees. And we can pursue it through the general plan. noise ordinance update. There was also discussion at that time about gas leaf blowers. I included in the packet an article about internal combustion engine, gardening equipment, etc. I think the state of California is going to be eliminating that ultimately. However, there was an article about the trials and tribulations relating to, I think it was the city of Milpitas and what they had gone through recently in their debates about eliminating gas leaf blowers. Also, our neighboring jurisdiction, Saratoga and Los Gatos, they both handled this through the noise ordinance. So if Monte Sereno wished to adjust our noise ordinance to limit the decibel levels of these devices, it's more of a quality of life issue. Yes, there is the pollution issue, there's the smell, there's the dust, there's those kind of things. But sometimes what annoys people the most is the noise level of these devices. So that might be something council would consider revising the noise ordinance, and that would be in conjunction with Mr. Rudin's office. Keep our city pretty. Last fall or so, Mayor Lawler suggested, Councilmember Lawler, suggested when I go on a walk, it would be nice to have a little bag that's had a city logo on it, like a little trash bag. I could pick up trash on my way. I think that was, and you can confirm that, Ms. Lawler, that's true. So I came up with a slogan, keep our city pretty. And I thought, well, maybe this could be something where we have the little trash bags, but we can have other things like dog waste stations and, or, you know, somebody can report vegetation that needs to be trimmed, or, you know, debris in the street or whatever. And it just, street signs and things through C-Click Fix, maybe we can join it with that, where the overall appearance of the city is always kept as tidy as possible. Last on the list this evening is the Urban Forestry Alliance. This is a relatively new agency that was germinated in the county of Santa Clara, and the idea is to have consistency throughout the county on our tree canopies and our rules for trees in our urban forests. Monte Sereno was a very early adopter. As soon as the email went out, I responded and took interest in this. And if the council wishes to pursue, I filled out the application online. I guess what they're doing is, the latest is they've taken an inventory. We filled out a survey on behalf of the city, and they're taking each city, a survey from each city, and then they're going to return. And I also have them speaking at the West Valley Mayors and Managers meeting coming up. But this is another idea, again, in environmental sustainability. We want to do as much as we can to keep our city pretty, keep our quality of life up, and keep the climate under control the best we can. And those are some proposed ideas. Council's opportunity comes to fill in some blanks, come up with new ideas, perhaps select some of these ideas and or eliminate these ideas, and consider the ones that we did not get to. If we can, again, scroll up to the top of this document, Ms. Radcliffe, if, you know, for instance, the operational excellence plan is something we want to continue, and or, you know, the city survey or whatnot is something council wishes to continue or to eliminate, then provide direction on those types of things. And I'm available for questions. There were other materials in the packet that I would like to touch on as well while we're up on the screen here. There was the Healthy Cities report card, and this was part of our strategic planning last year, and we did achieve. So we have the one from 2019, and we have the proposed new template, which is what they're working on, where they give you more of a bronze, a silver, and a gold rating. And I've been working on those objectives. We did adopt smoking policies last fall that helped us with no smoking in multi-family residences, as well as smoking eliminated at city events and on city property altogether. So we have scored some points with our Healthy Cities campaign. Recently, and in this packet this evening, I also included policies that Ms. Radcliffe and I drafted for procurement for healthy foods, healthy snacks, vending machines. We do not have any machines at City Hall, but if we ever did, we would offer healthy snacks, as well as at our city events. You know, 50% of the drinks will not be sugary drinks and these kinds of things. So by implementing those policies, we get points on our healthy cities, whether it's going to be the report card format or it will be the silver or bronze, silver, and gold format. I think we have more points than is, again, stated in the 2009 report card. We've achieved much since then. I think even in the areas of the mobility as well. But we're going to see what happens when the next rating system comes out. And I will say, since last year at this time, we've gained quite a few points, and that was the priority last year. What else is in the packet? The Veterans Memorial, I wanted to comment on that. So we had an ad hoc meeting, and staff created a mission statement, some questions for the ad hoc committee to answer, met with members of the ad hoc committee. They answered the 8 questions. Mr. Frantidakis, Ms. Lawler answered the questions as was provided in the packet, limit the budget to 15,000, create a committee that can help form like a commission to choose an artist. Also keep it simple and natural, maybe like a rock formation. I went online and I found those photos of different veterans memorials. If Ms. Radcliffe, if we can scroll to the photo with the rock that has the city name on it. Let's see. It says the Caledon Equestrian Park. I don't know if we can show those photos. But you can see there's a very natural looking rock with a garden. That's kind of how I thought would be a place to start with the design of the memorial, with a natural looking rock. And then I have pictures of 2 other veterans memorials that are simple, where they have the seals of the military on one side. We can actually put the name of Monte Sereno on one side facing the street and put the seals of the city or the different military entities on the other side, and then a garden in front. So that was the idea, just to start. But again, there would be a committee that would select artists or a call for artists for this, and we would show them the ideas and let them bring it forward. And I think that covers everything. Healthy cities, veterans.
And there we have the photo of the Veterans Memorial.
Let's get the one for the city of Calderon with the more natural look. This gives you an idea what the seals look like for the military. But the one that's more natural looking, I think would be appropriate. This rock looks too manufactured. That's what the seals would look like. I think those metal seals. Let's get that last photo up. So again, and this is just a starting point. While we're looking for the last photo, let's see. So that would be, of course, it will probably not be that large, but something like that, a natural looking stone, I think would be appropriate. So I'm available for questions on any of the carryover goals, the recommended goals by staff, or the items we just discussed.
Excellent, very good. And Councilmember Turner, I saw your hand. Oh, we just lost her. Her hand was up earlier, so let's move to Councilmember Turner. I saw your hand up earlier. Would you?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Mr. Spano, you actually put up a set of slides that I think is very good, and that has to do with the iceberg model. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. I think one of the things that we should do going forward for the coming year is to look at all of what we have here and prioritize them. And for example, fiscal prudence, we have 3 items in there, or however many items we'll end up with. Prioritize them and then put in the KPIs. In this way, we exactly know what we're looking for in each item if we have the associated KPIs. So I think your suggestion in that iceberg model is actually very good.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Lawler?
I did have my hand up, but I put it down. But since you have me, speaking to the items that were not accomplished last year, I completely agree. We should definitely roll those over and continue to address those. I do like the suggestions. Community engagement, Mr. Leonardis, is there going to continue to be a Pledge of Allegiance person like we were doing before COVID? Is that included?
That is correct. We still have the Pledge Leader program. It was only suspended because our live meetings went away. As a matter of fact, we have not done the pledge, I think, since the pandemic began. But if council wanted to recite the Pledge of Allegiance even on Zoom at meetings, we could potentially do that moving forward. I think initially we were thinking this would be more short-lived than it has been, but it ended up being a very long time. And we can even potentially Zoom in a pledge leader as well.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Okay, and going down the list here, enhanced mobility. Is there anything that we've learned from COVID that we can implement, that we can focus on for this coming year? I mean, obviously, well, this wouldn't be under enhanced mobility, but obviously we're going to continue to have people be able to access meetings via Zoom. And any other things that we've learned from COVID that have helped our community, we should maybe identify those. Community safety, I wanted to bring up something called FireWise. If we are a FireWise community, if we're certified a FireWise community by the National Fire Protection Association, there are benefits to that, including fire insurance discounts. And I know that the cost of fire insurance and or the cancellation of policies has been an issue for many of our residents. So I think researching FireWise would be something that we can do with respect to community safety. And then environmental sustainability. I can't take credit for the bag, the bag idea, but I do, the idea of maybe doggy bags might be interesting, or perhaps a annual trash pickup by the youth commission, or some kind of program that we can include the youth commission in. And anything other than that, I think this looks great. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so that is a great way for us to proceed, is to hear your thoughts on, and we can go back up and just move up to the first one as Councilmember Lawler did, the carryover items, your endorsement of those, and then you'll see the blanks there as Councilmember Lawler did, and adding on items that you want to have considered. And then we do know that as this process moves forward in response to Councilmember Turner, as this process moves forward, there will need to be performance indicators and work plans for the items, the objectives that get placed on here. So we can go now to Mayor Pro Tem Elahi, and what are your thoughts about the strategic goals and objectives?
Thank you. I think it's a good framework, and the comments by council members will help solidify that. So I'm going to go through also what items were left over maybe first. And I guess some of the stuff is still going on, like on the fiscal prudence, the pension OPEB liability reduction plan. That's going to continue. I mean, those things are going to keep coming up, and we'll always have more pension liabilities than we think we do. So I don't think we should just totally eliminate that. On the community engagement, one item we should add is the community picnic that we do every year, so that we stay focused on that one also. Under community character, the Airbnb or short-term rental policy, I assume we adopted it, but I just don't have any recollection of that. So if you did adopt that, that's great, but otherwise that may need to go back on there again. And then I wanted to add something more as another goal, which would just be that we should be have a goal of being as an inclusive community and have a goal to make sure that there's no discrimination in our community. And then under those subheadings, you can figure out how to best accomplish those. One of them might be the Veterans Memorial that we're doing. It should have something on there that shows our commitment to equality and against discrimination. Maybe a recognition of some of the minority veterans and the Tuskegee pilots would be one of them that we would, I would come to mind. And I think the fire-wise suggestion is a good one. We also need to balance that because the arena allocation numbers that come in, if there is some fire safety zones that might give us some protection against how much we need to rezone. So we need to work on that with the county or whoever does the fire layouts to make sure that everything that is a fire zone is properly documented. But on the other hand, we don't want to go overboard and have issues with that. One other thing I think we need to probably look at also is incorporating county properties that are adjacent to the city but are not in the city, because that could give us additional revenue. On the other hand, it could also be expensive if you have to fix the roads and everything else. But I think we should make that as at least an item that we should take a look at. On the noise ordinance, I don't know if the leaf blowers are an issue in Monte Sereno, because most of our properties are fairly large size, 1 acre, 2 acres, whatever else. If you've had a lot of complaints on that, then we should look at it. If you haven't, then it may not be necessary to cause more problems with the neighbors because somebody's complaining about somebody's leaf blowers. But I don't know if you've had any issues. I mean, the properties are fairly far away from each other. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Very good, excellent. And so as we set up the potential new items, it would be great to really identify what you consider to be your top items. So for example, Councilmember Lawler suggested fire-wise seemed to be very important to her. So, what are your really top items here? Let's go to Councilmember Turner and then Councilmember Mekachek next. Councilmember Turner?
Yes, let's go back to number one. I do agree 110% with Mayor Pro Tem Elahi on analyzing our OPEB and PERS costs. I think we should not remove that.
I want to make one comment, if I may, so there's no misunderstanding on this. When we crossed it off, that doesn't mean we are eliminating it. It means now it's kind of below the water line. For instance,
no, I don't think it should be below the water line. I think that should be top on our list.
I mean, we have policy in place where every year we pay it, so we're 100% funded. We adopted the financial policies, which directs us to do that on an ongoing basis. So in theory, this has now become routine. What you just mentioned is no longer a goal that we would like to obtain. It's an ongoing practice in the city. So I just
but we're also going to prioritize these, right?
Yes.
And they're going to be part of our KPIs, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah. If I could just interject here quickly. So, and I failed to mention that when we looked at the iceberg model. When a strategic goal or objective is accomplished and it continues to be ongoing, it actually moves below the water line. Now it's not above the water line because it is an ongoing, it's now integrated into the ongoing work of the city. It just becomes a routine thing. It doesn't need to be called out as special because it has been accomplished. Now there's some things that are accomplished and we're done with it. And it no longer appears above or below the water line. But in the case of OPED, in the case of PERS, those issues, it was important for council to say, we need to put extra focus on this. The staff has done that, and now they have integrated that in. And as the city manager just said, now we just do that every year. It's a routine thing that we do every year. Doesn't mean it's not important. It's very important. It just doesn't need to be called out because it has been integrated into the day-to-day work of the city.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying that. So let me go into some other things that I think should be under fiscal prudence as well. And it's also the maintenance of our reserves. I think that's something that we should think about. And it's also to develop a savings plan for the maintenance of City Hall and any future facilities that we may have. We're thinking about the community center. So we need to be able to have a plan for how we're going to maintain that. The other one that I would like to see is, let me see. I'm not sure I'll go by this. I made my notes here. Is in the past we had a bike master plan, and I don't see it in here, and I don't know if we've dropped it off or that's still important. But I think we should take a look at that. The other one also is safety of road crossings. I know that citizens have called me because since we don't have any sidewalks, it becomes, and with COVID, people have been walking around and they say the road crossings are not there. And also another one is high bandwidth. I know the mayor and I have been, Mayor Luthold and I have been talking about this for years. Google versus AT&T versus Comcast, and how to get high bandwidth that doesn't disrupt the beauty of Monte Sereno.
Very good.
So if I can jump in after Councilmember Turner is finished, the enhanced mobility part about internet capacity improved, that is a carryover. So we can continue to work on that. Safer road crossings for citizens, I think that would go under enhanced mobility instead of community safety. And I wanted to make one other comment. Of course, from the previous Mayor Pro Tem mentioned the city picnic. That is one of those items which is an ongoing, we know about it, we continue to do it. So it's considered just routine business at this point. It doesn't have to be a strategic goal.
Can I add one more, please?
What? Oh, one more.
Yes. I think one of the things we should look at is a drainage plan for the city. There are certain parts of the city that flood. I think we should take a look and see, what kind of drainage do we have in those areas, and can we have a plan for those? And then I think I'm done. Thank you.
Very good. And we caught that one, Ms. Radcliffe. How about drainage plan? Would that fit under community safety?
Community character.
Community character.
Let's
Let us-
scroll up. Let's see where it would potentially go. Community engagement, scroll up, quality public services, government operations. I would say that would probably go under
Or environmental sustainability.
environmental sustainability or enhanced mobility, perhaps.
Yeah. Let's put it under environmental sustainability for now. Very good. And I will come back to council role, mission, vision, and values. We don't want to lose that one, but I think we're on to Mayor Luthold now.
Thank you. Yeah, so I want to really, up at the beginning, I want to underline what Councilmember Turner just said regarding maintaining city reserves, savings plan, and really improving the budget position. I think we've come, and we were talking about this last time with looking at how we're going to fund the pavement improvement project, how much that's going to take our reserves down. We're really getting close to the bone or below that in terms of what the budget looks like. And if things don't go perfectly, we're going to end up cutting. If we get hit with an OPEB PERS change again and need to figure out how to either not fund that or fund that, that's going to be very problematic for our budget and our reserves. So I think we really, I don't think we can stress enough figuring out how to improve the city budget. I don't see where it's going to happen, but we need to get to that as we do serious budget work here. So I think that's going to need to be a priority. A couple of other comments in terms of it might be under more of the environmental sustainability, promoting low water landscaping, and also that combines with promoting fire protection landscaping. I think those are areas that we could address. In terms of just, it's more technical on beautifying the city. Some of the suggestions about doggy bag stations. I think one of the things that goes hand in hand with that, and I don't know how we would take care of this, I don't know if we have the administration to do it, would be to have some trash cans at strategic locations, probably near the schools, near the corner at, for example, Dave's in Winchester. There's a lot of transitional people walking. If we have doggy bags, we need trash cans. If we have trash cans, we need them picked up regularly. But that might go a long way to beautifying the city, because I think a lot of people are willing to pick up trash and carry it along and put it away without the commitment of knowing that they've got to take it all the way home and with them. So maybe something practical there. Let's see. I think that's primarily it. One other thing that I enjoy and kind of fits with this idea that was tossed out there by city manager with things like the birdhouses. I always love seeing the little libraries around town, and I think we could certainly do with more of them. So that might be something that we could promote just as a fun thing for the city of Monte Sereno.
Excellent. Very good. We'll go to Councilmember Lawler and then Councilmember Mekachuk if you have anything to add, sir. Go ahead, Councilmember Lawler.
Oh, Councilmember Mekachuk can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things that I observed in terms of the items that didn't get done, and can you scroll up to the operational excellence plan? Like, and maybe that operational excellence plan, that's just words, and you know, there's nothing operational in that. So maybe that's why it wasn't done and we couldn't, quote, stroke it off the list, or it remains an item. So I just have that as an observation for the items that didn't get done. I think that when I looked at page 48 of 56 of the packet, it's the Health Cities Program 2019 dashboard. And under active and safe communities, we got 4 out of 8. And the subcategory says promote healthy recreation and transportation. And the 5th item down says pedestrian master plan. And this dovetails into what the other council members have said, that I think what we really need to do as a strategic priority is to say, what is our pedestrian master plan? And I think someone else said, you know, where are we on bicycles? But as the city of Monte Sereno ages, and I look at what's going on in the city of Monte Sereno, I know we've only got a few thoroughfares through Monte Sereno, one of which is Dave's Avenue. And the property that's at the S-turn there, where you are going west, and then you make a 90-degree right-hand turn and then a 90-degree left-hand turn, that property got developed on the corner, and I have to believe that we missed a huge opportunity by not putting in a sidewalk in that property, maybe buying the land from the landowner or doing something as a condition of approval. But that kind of that's a hugely important connection in our city. And maybe because we didn't have a pedestrian master plan, that's why the Site and Architectural Commission missed it, or somehow it got missed. But as the city ages, we have a couple of thoroughfares, and then there's all the cul-de-sacs that go off of those. And you don't really need sidewalks on the cul-de-sacs, but on those main thoroughfares, you really need them to promote safety, and it becomes even more important as our city ages. Anyways, so I think that's super important. In terms of annexing the county pockets, I also think that's important, but one of the things that we have to recognize is we have to align and simplify our ordinances with the town of Los Gatos and the county. And I think that was mentioned a couple of times, but that's important to me. In terms of environmental sustainability, there's a former council member, Dan Leboubet, and when we were talking about the carbon footprint and what creates greenhouse gases, he kept on saying, you know, look at the numbers, it's transportation. Well, if it is transportation, then I think we should make it easier to electrify our transportation. And to that, you know, I think that making it easier to install car chargers would be helpful. We've got a high penetration of electric vehicles, but I think there's even more opportunity there. And I think in terms of showing the leadership here, that's an important thing. In terms of see-click fix, I think that's hugely important, and we should just get that done. I didn't report back to council, but I had looked at the see-click fix and discussed it with the city manager. And I contacted some council members from other jurisdictions that implemented see-click fix, and it's just a wonderful opportunity for us. And that ticks a number of items, you know, like keep our city pretty. You know, that's how you are able to do that. And in terms of safety, and we talked about fires, I think there is an opportunity to put pressure on PG&E to implement sectionalizers so that we segregate the high extreme fire risk from the lesser fire risk areas. And maybe it's already being driven to implementation, but seeing the objective standards being worked on, and I saw in the Site and Architectural Commission the presentation and the work plans for that, but it's going to have to come back to council, and I think it's very important that we see that through and get it done, and sooner will be better than later. And just the other thing in terms of the noise, you know, while I wish that I had an R144 lot, unfortunately I live in an R18 subdivision, and boy, you know, the noise is actually really significant from the leaf blowers. And maybe the solution to that, and I may be drilling into detail, is on a neighborhood basis versus a flat out, you know, here's what the noise is across all of the city of Monte Sereno. Because if you're on an R144, I mean, you know, you've got land and you've got vegetation that buffers the noise, but in an R18, you don't really have that. So those are a number of my comments.
Very good. Thank you for that. And we'll go to Councilmember Lawler.
Yeah, I'll just be brief because actually Councilmember Mekachek had covered it. I believe that looking at a pedestrian plan is a great idea, because one of the things we did learn from COVID was that everybody was taking walks. And so creating a community in which they can walk safely and continue to do so is obviously a good idea. The other thing I was going to mention was support the idea of the leaf blower, the noise ordinance, because I do have a lot of neighbors that complain, and for some reason there's a new leaf blower out there that it's got a much bigger engine, And so I think the idea of at least reducing the decibel on that would be helpful to many, many residents. And then finally, I had forgot to mention this before, but this would be community engagement. And I know this might be difficult, but I'd like to look into doing something nice for our community, like having an annual event, not the picnic, but something where we can have an annual like shredders event where people can bring their papers and shred them at City Hall, or bring their you know, or we could have a toxic waste removal. I know we've talked about this to the city manager, but I wonder if we can find ways to engage either volunteers in the community or the youth commission in doing some kind of annual nice event for people that makes their lives easier. And that is all. Thank you.
Very good. So let me just add, we'll bring this piece to a close with just the one other item that we touched on earlier, which was the council role, mission, vision, and values. And Councilmember Mekachuk suggested that that would go under community engagement. So it sounds like there's interest in pursuing that as an objective. And then my question would be to council, similar to what happened in 2017, is there an interest in forming a council ad hoc committee to take this on? The revision of the council roles, vision, et cetera. Or is that something that you would want staff to take a first pass at? And I'm just going back to Councilmember Turner suggesting she wanted this to be a collaborative effort among the council members. Thoughts around that? Okay, hearing none. City Manager Leonardis, thoughts on that in terms of, is that something that staff would take on and make some revisions to that and bring it back to council for review?
Well, I think in the instance of this one, we have a document provided by Councilmember Turner and Mayor Leuthold. They worked on this weekend, and I would say we would just write a staff report, bring it back at a future council meeting. And as Councilmember Mekachuk alluded to, the council will have a chance to kind of read it in full, contemplate it, bring their best ideas, and adopt, I guess, a red line version of it or whatnot. Also, the city attorney would have a chance to review it. So that could just be just a public hearing item in the future.
Very good. Excellent. And so, Ms. Ratcliffe, we can put that under community engagement. Do we have, City Manager, do you have any questions about any of the items that are up in red?
Well, let's scroll to the top of the document. We'll start at the beginning. So I just wanted to comment, maintenance of city reserves. We have a policy that we adopted last year when we adopted the financial policies. It's very explicit regarding the use of city reserves and how much we are allowed to have in reserves or how much we should maintain in our reserves. So again, that's already a known. I understand the essence of the importance of it, but it's essentially ongoing operations. This is kind of a below the water line item. I don't want to trivialize it, but I just want to mention that it's not necessarily a goal, a strategic goal, other than it's continued, a continued strategic goal. So I don't know if we need to include it or not, but I know it is important. Develop a savings plan. That is definitely a new idea for City Hall maintenance and future city facilities. That is a new idea if we should create a budget line item. Scrolling down. So I would recommend the maintenance of the city reserves. In the interest of brevity and being able to achieve some of these items, I would probably eliminate that number 3 from the first bucket, only because, again, it's an ongoing thing, unless there's a different desire to keep it. Going down to bullet C or category C, community engagement. Annual event to engage volunteers, shredding, toxic waste drop off. That could be handled through the Youth Commission, so we can work on that. Last year, we did a coat drive. The Youth Commission did that. We collected 27 coats. We gave it to West Valley Community Services. Revision of council goals. We just discussed that. We'll get rid of the number 4 there at the bottom. You can delete that, Ms. Radcliffe. The 4 below the 6. There we go. Okay, moving on to community character. Inclusive community. I think that's important. I think we demonstrate that on a daily basis. It's part of our practice. We always want to be an inclusive community. So we'd be looking for more guidance on that. We did this year have the discussion, and we did adopt the Social Justice Award through the Youth Commission. I think that was huge. It got a lot of very positive reception. Our neighbors to the south, Los Gatos, do have what they call becoming an inclusive community. They have speakers come in, and they have, online meetings where they have guest speakers from all walks of life come in and do presentations about being more inclusive. So they have taken it very far. We can engage some of that if that's what the desire of this is. The birdhouses, the libraries around the city, I would probably categorize that as, the same as bullet B above, community arts project. And then we might be able to add like a slash. There we go. Just like that. Perfect. Cleans it up a little bit. And then delete the last number C there. Okay, so that looks good. Enhanced mobility. There was discussion about the safer road crossings for citizens pedestrian plan. There was also mention of the bicycle and pedestrian, or a bicycle plan. And we have Engineer Khan, I believe, on the call this evening. She can elaborate as to the status of those items. If Jessica, are you on with us? Maybe not. Okay, we can come back to,
I don't see her here.
okay, we might be able to come back to that one.
I see her. She's there.
Oh, she's here.
She's got her hand up.
My
Okay,
mistake.
great.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, please.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Great. So as far as we do have a bicycle and pedestrian master plan that was created with the town of Los Gatos now several years ago. They've updated their portion of the plan that the city has not. I think it's a great idea. Those things need to be updated relatively often, especially considering the pandemic, and like council members were speaking about, I think it's the pandemic has given a new perspective about mobility and bicycleability in the city. I will say that these projects do often call for a lot of public comment and public meetings. So hopefully within the next year, we'll be able to have in-person meetings again, because I think a lot of the times that's where you get the best information for updating and creating these plans. And this also, just for your information, links very much into the drainage issues that Council Member Turner was speaking about, because when you have safe places to walk and definitive road ends and curbs and gutters, you tend to have less drainage problems. So all of those items are really interconnected.
We can bring that back as a future agenda item as update to citizens bicycle and pedestrian plan. It was mentioned here, safer road crossings for citizens / bicycle, but why don't we change the language to update the bicycle and pedestrian plan? Does that work? So the next item, the community safety, private safety, increased police patrol, flock cameras. Is this an item council wishes to pursue, and or should we just let the police department continue on the path that they have established? They have been doing a lot of work, especially with the events of the past year, regarding George Floyd and other things. They recently had a discussion about hiring more of a social worker specialist to handle some calls and things like that as well. But when it comes to the community safety, the burglaries and those types of things, the discussion that I had with the chief centered around the flock cameras as being the most effective device for increased community safety. When it comes to hiring a private security person, that did not receive a very, how can I say, it was a very lukewarm reception from the police department, in the sense that they felt like that would be ineffective, or perhaps I kind of got the impression it could be a hindrance in a sense to their ability to patrol. So they were not very in tune with that idea. As far as if Monte Sereno, an alternative to that was if Monte Sereno wanted a dedicated officer just to Monte Sereno, there's discussion of that, but that would come at a price. So if council wants this in a future public hearing, we can put together a staff report and discuss all these alternatives. One thing that we did do recently was we increased the code compliance officers' hours to about 20 hours a month, up from 16 a month, which is, I guess, 25% increase for the code compliance officer. During the pandemic, we had kind of a situation where the code enforcement wasn't as robust because of the pandemic. And now that we're coming out of the pandemic, we wanted to increase that and make it so things are getting handled in a more timely manner. That also increases the presence of somebody out in the community on a regular basis. I'll leave it at that. Firewise, I think, is a great opportunity, similar to the Tree City certification. It is a certification that we can obtain by taking some simple steps. So I think that is a good recommendation. When we come down to environmental sustainability, as was mentioned by Engineer Khan, the drainage could be part of the pedestrian master plan. Also, drainage, when it comes to the storm drains, those are handled mostly by West Valley Sanitation District. So it's kind of a tricky thing, because on occasion you'll have an issue in someone's location with flooding. And it could be because of the, what do they call these things? The atmospheric monsoon or something like this. You get the whole year's water dumped in 1 week. Somebody's storm drain gets plugged up and it floods. But for the rest of the year, or for the remaining 5-year cycle, you don't you don't have any issue with it. So it's kind of a tricky thing to keep track of drainage. We have been doing this. We've responded to several issues in the community that were kind of long outstanding issues over the past year with drainage. So we have been on top of those issues as they occur. But this past winter, we had no issue, primarily no issues that were of significance. So I'm thinking that one we'll leave it on there, I suppose, and see what happens during this year. This could be a record year for rain, we hope. Promoting low water and low fire landscaping. I think the way to handle these types of things is have the people from San Jose Water come in and speak at our meeting, and then we publicize it on our website. The fire department come and do their annual presentation to council, and they can speak to low fire landscaping. So those kinds of things we can do as presentations at our council meeting, as well as promote through our website. So that should be pretty easy to achieve. Installation of more electrical vehicle charging stations. The city property, we could probably do additional charging station. I've had a conversation with Engineer Khan about this. When we redo the community room building, we're going to increase the charging system access there. When it comes to private residences and their ability to increase charging at their homes. I think this is the future. What was it, 2030 or 2035? No more gas-powered vehicles in California. Also at the national level, they're exploring this. So I think this is something that will happen organically. But we can certainly support the culture of this. And as was mentioned earlier in the evening, we adopted the REACH codes, which emphasizes electric use as an alternative to natural gas in the community. So an overall strategy towards electrification supported through, say, Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And again, we can have them come and speak at our meeting as we did last year, emphasize the latest and greatest, and then help promote it in our city newsletters and things like that. Are there any items on the list? If we scroll back up at the top, because when we provide this list, it was everybody bring, one or two items and we'll narrow it down. And then some brought many items, which is great. But are there any items as we look at this list that council would like to just kick out? In other words, it doesn't have to be an all you can eat menu. It can be narrowed down if council decides. So for instance, Councilmember Mekachek brought up under governments and operations, operational excellence plan is kind of, as we would say, maybe vague and ambiguous. What is this? Is this something that should be continued on the list, or should this be, eliminated? Mayor Pro Tem brought up the Airbnb ordinance, and that one staff looked into extensively, and we determined that it wasn't really worth it. Right now, Monte Sereno doesn't allow for, we have nothing in our code that allows for turning your home into a rental. There may be people doing it, but we haven't received any complaints about it. So we just thought we're not really going to collect any revenue off of this, so we should leave it alone. That's why that one was eliminated from the list. There was mentioned by two council members this evening about annexation, and that I guess could be under, let me see if we scroll down. I think we can go under, that could be a community safety thing, that can be enhanced mobility potentially, it can be under fiscal prudence, it can fit under several categories. Staff can look into annexation. I think the problem with most of it is you inherit a lot of road maintenance, so you have to do an economic analysis of whether it's worth it to incorporate those county pockets for the amount of streets that you will be acquiring, that you will now be in charge of maintaining. Case in point, when I was in Los Gatos, there was 52 county pockets, and I think we acquired 48 of them. There were several of the county pockets that had streets that were in poor condition, yet there was only one or two houses that were on the street, and it was like 5 miles of streets in poor condition. So it wasn't didn't make any economic sense to acquire that county pocket and acquire that liability of repairs. But we definitely put that under, we'll put it under fiscal prudence. I think that one got left out of the discussion. So looking for council's feedback on now consolidating the list. And or if there's anything else we had left off.
I see a council member Lawler has her hand up.
All right,
Please.
thank you. Okay, as we scroll down, okay, so under quality public services, under governance operations, operational excellence plan is vague. I think what we've done is we've accomplished a lot in terms of streamlining and improving services, particularly with our fiscal office and other things. And so perhaps that can be, that's sort of a maybe under the waterline thing now that we could revisit at some point if necessary. And then scrolling down to, one thing I wanted to mention about Firewise that I forgot to mention was that if neighborhoods also have that designation, you can have access to funding for wildfire mitigation. So having access to money is always a good thing. Down under go all the way down to the bottom, environmental sustainability, I would suggest instead of drainage, perhaps flood control. I know we talked about those fillable noodles, Mr. Leonardis, that you can fill with water that you can use at times of emergencies for residents who are experiencing a flood emergency. Maybe that would be more appropriate. And then as far as the more electrical vehicle charging stations, we did in the REACH codes designate that all new builds build outlets for EV vehicles. So we've somewhat accomplished that already within our building codes. So I'm not sure if someone would drive to City Hall to charge their car, or would they just drive home? So that I'm not sure if that's something that's we've already achieved. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Excellent, very good. Thank you. Continuing on the consolidation theme, Pro Tem Elahi.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if I'm doing consolidation here or expansion. One thing, we are going to have a pretty bad fire season, unfortunately, it seems like. So I know the City Hall has some generators, but you may want to add something where you have a more robust backup generation system that could serve the City Hall at least for a few days with possibly a generator which is backed up by solar batteries and maybe has a propane or some other gas link with it, like a generic type platform. So you may want to take a look at that, because you certainly don't want the city to be out of power if something happens back there. The other thing I might suggest is on the enhanced mobility, maybe we could call it enhanced infrastructure, since we're talking about more than just mobility. We're talking about crosswalks and pedestrians and everything else. So you may want to change that name. One other thing I want you to consider, there's above the water, the iceberg that we see, and then there's below the water, but there are important things that we don't want to miss out. So maybe we do need to have a separate sheet where we have, which would be the operational sheet, where operational items are written, like the pension plan and those things can go on there, and some other things like the B&B and air rental. I know we don't. Yeah, I thought we didn't do an ordinance on that, and but I think we do need to address that before somebody starts complaining about it, because there is a lot of activity going on in that area. So so maybe we need to at least have a separate sheet where we can put on the ideas that don't quite make it to the above the water line, but are important enough that we don't want to be missing them. Because, for example, for pension plan things, even though we think we're doing it every year, the purse comes back with numbers that are a total surprise every year. 3 years ago, the previous city council thought they had paid it all off, and then it turns out there was another $600,000 that had to be paid. So I don't think we want to be just assuming that our regular payment that we're making is going to cover it, but they will come back based on what the returns are on the different interest rates. Those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Very good. Any other opportunities for consolidation here? Let's go to Mayor Luthold and then to Councilmember Turner.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I don't really see necessarily consolidation. I wanted to speak up on behalf of the Operational Excellence Plan staying on. That was something Daniel Labouvet spearheaded before. And what he meant by that was very clear, which was measure, measure, measure. And I think that's really critical. And I think letting that wash away, letting the city manager take it away, is exactly what we can't do. Operational excellence is all about the city manager getting the matrix of his own performance out there for us and telling us exactly how that's going to work. And if he can't do it, we're going to do it for him. So operational excellence is all about turnaround time, about customer satisfaction, about how the community is viewing the council and the city operations, measuring, reporting, cycling around, constantly improving on it. So I think this is something, I'm not an expert in this field by any means. We've lost the expert in this field that we had with Mr. Labouvet. But we may even need to bring in outside help on this. So I'd like to see that stay on, and I'd like to see it get done and get done right.
Well, I'll jump in and say that what you really need to do is make the description understandable and actionable. So rather than something that's kind of operational excellence plan, maybe it's develop operational metrics and manage to those metrics. Something like that, so that it's understandable. But I hear you, and I think that the metrics of what we want to see should be driven into the city manager's performance plan.
Very good. Okay, can we pursue any consolidation efforts here? Councilmember Turner.
Yes, I'd like to make some comments here. I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Elahi on making sure that the OPEB and PERS costs are not eliminated, and that we say, oh, you know, it's below the line, so yes, we will think about it. I want to make sure, because that's really key. The other key important thing here is the maintenance of city reserves. Those are the two most important things. Without that, we're not a city. Okay. The other one is this operational excellence plan. I think that what that equates to really is the KPIs that we were talking about. So I think that should stay as well. And in terms of fire-wise, I think one of the things we should have, you know how we have Chief DeSena come in and do a report on the police. We should have something like that for fire services, some type of fiscal review or biannual review that would include the CERT program as well.
Very good. Okay, any other comments? Any other consolidation?
Yeah.
Off the list? Go ahead, council member.
So if you could scroll down, please. Climate change resolution. Again, it didn't get done because what does it mean? And, you know, what do we want to do on that, if anything? You know, I think that we need to encourage and support the move to reduce our carbon emissions in Monte Sereno. That's kind of operational, that you can then do something with it, but just a resolution, I'm not sure what that means, and I wasn't on council when it got on there. In terms of G, I do want to clarify that I in no means meant that we need to have more electric vehicle charging stations that are public. I think we have to promote electric vehicle chargers, residential chargers. And while I think that the REACH codes were a first step, there is no way we're going to get to the goals by having just the REACH codes. So I think that there's some opportunities in there to increase the penetration of charging stations and make sure that our built infrastructure can support electric vehicles more.
Great, thank you for that clarification. Councilmember Turner, is that a new hand raised? Or
no, sorry.
before? Okay,
No.
That's okay, no problem. Okay, seeing no other comments, hands raised. I think if you're okay, city manager, we can move towards closing the session here.
I just have a couple quick cleanup items. If we can scroll up to the top. So let's see. Under item B, there's an empty line 3 that's highlighted. Let's get rid of that. And then if we can.
Why don't you move number 3, online resident issue tracking, the C-click fix? Why don't you move that into governance and operations? Because I think that's what it is at this point.
So a good recommendation there. We can get rid of the 3 and the 4.
Yeah, I'll do the cleanup afterwards.
Okay, and then if we scroll down to where it says inclusive community, I don't know if that tab can be eliminated. Item C there, there's a little space. When it comes to enhanced mobility, so instead of infrastructure, instead of mobility, we took that language directly from the general plan. My recommendation is we leave the general plan language. I think we all realize that it includes the movement of persons, citizens through our community. And I would say in the matter of consistency, we just leave it, although it was a good recommendation. When we go down to backup generator at City Hall, already done. We just had it installed last week. So we're ready. We ordered it a while ago, been working on that for about a year. And I hope we're going to be ready for the first PSPS event. Heaven forbid we have one. With something we hope we never have to use, but we will be prepared when we have a very robust system. Let's see, for the first time in city history, we scroll down. I think that about covers it. With the climate change resolution, I think there was some additional language. We can put a slash in there. And Mr. Mekachek alluded to it. I don't remember specifically, I didn't jot it down. But if we wanted to add to that, what he recommended.
Encourage and support the move to reduce carbon emissions in Monte Sereno.
That's what it was. Thank you.
The carbon emissions. And that will help with the footprint too.
And then, I mean, my final comment would be, in the interest of further consolidation, if possible, should we go through each and every line item and say, do we have consensus on these? For instance, I heard different things on the gas leaf blowers as should we or shouldn't we? It is a little bit of a sticky wicket. The state is on it. There are different parcel sizes. It becomes a very difficult thing to manage and create. It would become probably an enforcement for the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department to enforce. So is that something we should pursue, or should we leave it on the list and create a staff report and see what happens? I mean, that was one example, but are there any items on the list that council feels not in support of in a majority? Like, they're there, but they're all good ideas to some extent, but any further consolidation?
I'm good with the list the way it is, and you know, I think it's how we operationalize these and make them happen that will be important. But I see that we can move forward we can start to move forward on all of these items in 2021, 22, and then some of them will continue into 2023.
And that is also a good way to view it, because sometimes, most of the time, cities look at these types of lists as 3 to 5 year goals, and they review them every year, or 2 to 5 year goals. And it's an ongoing, it's an evolving process.
I have a quick question.
Councilmember Lawler, go ahead.
Thank you. As far as reducing any of these, can we go down to environmental sustainability again? Please, thank you. Promoting low water and low fire landscaping. Does that just fall under the purview of San Jose Water and Valley Water? I mean, is this something that can be covered in presentations and drought education to our residents? Is this something that has to be, was this something that should be on the list, or is this something that can be done outside of this?
So in response,
Go ahead.
in response to that, the city does, in accordance with state law, have and does enforce the model water landscape ordinance that's been put out by the Department of Water Resources. So the city is supposed to be verifying the low water usage of irrigation and things like that for landscaping on new development projects. The city could take some additional steps with respect to promoting low water and low fire landscaping more generally, especially for existing, dwellings. But there are some things that already exist with respect to low water, and some of that obviously would need to be done with coordination with the water agency.
Okay, all right, good, thanks. Then that's fine.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on that one. That was my idea there. And my idea by putting it on was that we should be looking for opportunities to be more proactive than simply sticking stuff up on Nextdoor and having presentations to the city council with the 3 people from the public listening. So really to figure out, can we find rebates for our citizens? Can we create them if possible? I know we don't have the budget for it right here today, but what can we do to make sure people are planting trees, replacing lawn, giving them incentives, and actually being proactive? I think Mr. Leonardis has a point, which is this may not be something that we can actually accomplish a lot on right here, right now, but I'd like to see us moving towards being proactive if there are opportunities to be more proactive.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate your explaining that. I think, especially since we're going into another potentially historic drought, this is very important that our residents understand what needs to be done.
And I'd like to add to that, the mayor point and Councilmember Lawler's point on that. In our updated general plan, we can incorporate increased language in those categories. We have language in there now, but the idea would be to change with the times. That the general plan has not been updated, I think, since 2007, and obviously things have changed quite a bit since then. And we would incorporate and promote language as such in these 2 categories.
Yeah, and actually to close that out, in the past, there have been some great ideas like streamlining the removal of undesirable trees. So those are the types of operational things that may come along, and creative ideas that we could then look to implement.
Good.
Yeah. What would also be helpful, there are rebates that are offered by the water company or some other people. I know one of my neighbors received a ton of money to mow down his lawn and put low water usage landscaping. So it may be helpful if the city is able to fret some of those out, and if there is an offer on the table, we can then promote it with our residents so that they can take advantage of such rebates.
Good. It was mentioned earlier on the noise ordinance update, the leaf blowers. And as I heard it, as the city manager did, there didn't sound like there was a lot of agreement on council for that. And since the state is moving forward on that, is that something that can come off the list?
My one point on that would be, this kind of falls under also lowering gas emissions. I know that was part of the conversation. I think if you saw the attachment, they were responsible for a very large percentage of gas emissions.
Okay.
So that may just, it could be an easy, just reduce the decibel. I don't know. I mean, I know residents have come to me and complained, so
Okay.
I know it's a problem.
So do we have a noise ordinance in place? I assume we do. And is this above that noise level?
So we do have a noise ordinance. The question would be if the noise ordinance should be adjusted to more specifically address decibel levels of things like leaf blowers and hours of use of devices and or construction hours, those types of things. I believe that there is opportunity for enhancement on things like holidays, and then on things like Sundays. I don't know all the specifics off the top of my head. I don't want to get into the details, but case in point, somebody's having a party on the 4th of July and they're out there at 7 a.m. with their leaf blower. Is that something that we want? You know, that was the argument in Los Gatos when they looked at the noise ordinance. And in that case, it was a gas leaf blower. And then what had occurred subsequently was they outlawed all the gasoline leaf blowers somehow. And I believe they did it through the noise ordinance. I don't know how it has evolved since then, but I know that this is being, I look at it in two forms. One is it's a quality of life issue, right? It's the noise late at night, it's the noise in the early morning. Is it construction hours from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or whatever, 7 days a week, those kind of things. That could be one issue. And the other issue is, you know, people don't like the smell, they don't like the dust, they don't like, you know, the sound, the pollution aspect as well, which I think would ultimately be addressed at the state level. I wanted to touch or circle back on what Mayor Pro Tem Elahi mentioned. On our website, we added this last year for residents, and you go into the San Jose Water consumer information. There's a landscape rebate program. There's a gray water usage link. There is a smart landscape website, and there's resources for developing a sustainable garden, among things. We have about 10 bullets, everything you want to know about water-friendly landscaping and rebates and things are linked to our city webpage. The question is, how do we get the word out there to the residents? And all we can do is publicize it in our city newsletter and or forums like Instagram, our news feed, our e-blasts, and our next door postings.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. Just promote it so people know about it. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so if there's nothing else, and I'm not seeing any other raised hands here, I think we should move towards close. And as the next steps, as you all know, the budget, adoption of the budget is scheduled for June 15th, and that the items that were discussed here tonight and the sheet that is up on the objectives will be brought back to you for a more formal consideration and approval. So with that said, we are ready to we're ready to close out the meeting. And if you want to make any last comments, Mr. City Manager, we can wrap up the meeting this evening.
I just want to thank the council, the staff, and of course, Mr. Spano and Ms. Walker, who is doing our minutes this evening, for their participation this evening. I think it was very productive, and I am glad that we have this framework that we established last year and we've continued into this year, and we're building off of it. It provides kind of a consistent path forward in an organized fashion. We get a lot done in a short amount of time approaching it this way. Maybe it is the magic of Zoom. We're not in a room eating a breakfast, a buffet breakfast, and enjoying each other's company. But nevertheless, we got a lot done. I also like the way Ms. Radcliffe is able to update the list in real time. Very, very valuable. Thank you for everything this evening. I think it was very, very productive.
With that said, then, good luck, and we will look forward to a goal setting session in 2022. Thank you, and everybody have a great evening.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Mr. Spano, Ms. Walker, Mr. Leonardis, Ms. Radcliffe, everyone for supporting that. Okay, moving now to committee and commission reports. Anyone have committee and commission reports for us? Please raise a hand and we'll recognize you. Seeing none. Wow, it's quiet. All right. Was that a hand, Mr. Makachuk, or were you just?
Yes, I wanted to speak on maybe it's council member comments. It's not really a commission report that I've got.
All right, well, that's fine too. I think we're ready to move there, and we can weave the two together if other committee people have either comments or reports. So go ahead.
So one of the things that I have been looking at is what San Jose Water Company is doing with their rates. And I had asked for information from them because I did quite a bit of work putting a letter together from the City of Monte Sereno to the Public Utilities Commission. And I kind of hit a roadblock on that because I wasn't getting the information from John Tang. And I just wanted council to know that there will be a draft letter coming, but it wasn't on the agenda tonight. I was trying to get it, but then, you know, also this is our goal setting. So I just wanted to let you know that it will be there at the next meeting.
Great, thank you. And if you need any help beyond what you're getting with Mr. Tang, if Mr. Leonardis or I can help, please reach out to us and we can add a little additional pressure.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Elahi.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a report on the Silicon Valley Clean Energy. So there's been apparently an issue on forced labor being used to make solar panels. And so they're looking into making sure that we're not purchasing those panels that are made by forced labor. And they've actually actively condemned it. So that's something we need to keep in mind. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else, council member comments or reports? Seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to the city manager's report. Mr. Leonardis, anything to add tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. Just some somber news. Reynold Zamaranos, our finance administrative officer, his father passed away last week, and Reynold has been caring for his father exclusively for the past several years. He was 94 years old, so Reynold has been preoccupied for the last couple weeks tending to those matters. So I'm going to be circulating a card, a sympathy card, on behalf of the employees here. As you know, we're a very small family of employees, and I just wanted to make mention of that. The obituary was in Sunday's newspaper, and that's all I have to report this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Future agenda items. Any council members with future agenda items?
I think the list we gave city manager notice probably has a few of them on there.
That's right. That's the list of future agenda items for the next year. Okay, great. And of course, if anything else needs to get on to next week, I think after that we end up no meetings for a while. So make sure to plan accordingly as we move into the summer if you need anything addressed. All right, thank you, everyone. On that, I will close the council meeting for the June 1st, 2021. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Have a nice weekend.
Good night.